Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us for this lecture 2 of the Cricket South Africa Level 1 umpiring course. My name is Abdullah Steenkamp and my co-presenter today will be Tom Mukarosi. The format of today's lecture will be as follows. I will kick off with laws 12 up until 17. We will then have a 10-minute break. After that, Tom will then take you through laws 18, 19, and 20. And after that, we will then open the floor for question and answers. Feel free to put any questions in the chat box while I'm presenting. We will then answer all those questions in the chat box when we do in our Q&A section. So kick off for law 12. How do we start a game? How do we end a game? How do we end a session? Because more-day cricket is divided up into sessions. Like Test match cricket, they have 3 sessions per day. So how do we start these sessions? How do we end it? Let's have a look. So if I can use a Test match as an example, let's say South Africa play in Pakistan. So day 1, let's say play will start at 10 o'clock. So usually what will happen, the umpires will take the field at 9:55, followed by the fielding side, and then the batters will then follow afterwards. Umpires will then get into their positions. The fielding side will get into their respective positions. They will then choose which bowler is going to open the bowling. The batters then choose their respective ends. And as soon as everyone's ready, umpires will then check that the scorers are ready, that the fielding side's ready, as well as the batters are ready. And as soon as everyone's ready, the bowlers in umpire will call play, verbally call it out loud so that everyone can hear play. And that call of play indicates the start of the match. Similarly, I mentioned that more-day cricket, gets divided into sessions. Like Test match cricket, there are 3 sessions in a day. You'll find your morning session, then your mid-afternoon session, and then your late afternoon session. So as soon as we restart after let's say our lunch break, bowlers and umpire also need to call play. So now we know how we start the game and how we start after a session. So how do we end the game, or how do we end a session? We end a session by verbally calling out time. In an example, in our test match, South Africa Pakistan, day 1, play starts at 10 o'clock. So the bowlers and umpire will verbally call play. Now we get to 12 o'clock, and 12 o'clock is our lunchtime. So before we go to lunch, at the end of the over, bowlers and umpire will now call over, time, and then let the players know it is now lunch. So you start by calling play and you end by calling time out verbally or loudly. As soon as you call time, the law wants the bails to be removed from both wickets. So before you go for lunch, you'll call over time and you'll indicate that it's now lunchtime. Both umpires needs to remove the bails from the respective ends. Starting a new over. So in our example of a test match between South Africa and Pakistan, day 1, we will start at 10 o'clock and we'll take lunch at 12 o'clock. So now the fielding side needs to try to bowl as many overs as they can between 10 and 12 o'clock. So now we know lunchtime is 12 o'clock. So now let's say we get to 11:59 and it's now the end of the over. Now it's a minute to go till our lunchtime. So what do we now do? Do we allow another over? Don't we allow another over? The law tells us, because it's not 12 o'clock, you need to see whether you can get another over in. So how do you see whether you can bowl another over? The umpires now need to walk at normal pace. And walking at normal pace, if the strikers in umpire gets to behind the stumps before the clock strikes 12 o'clock, another over then needs to be bowled. If the bowlers in umpire does not get to behind the stumps at the bowlers end before 12 o'clock, then it will be lunchtime in my example. Other than at the end of the game, the law wants the over to be completed before you take your lunch or your tea. And there's one exception, and we'll get to that later in the slide. But I'll give you an example what is mean by first complete the over, then take lunch. So in our test match that I'm using as an example, play started at 10 and lunch is at 12 o'clock. So now we get to 12 o'clock. Umpire look at his or her watch. They see it's 12 o'clock. And the bowlers, like let's say we're midway through the over. We've bowled 3 balls in the over. But it's now 12 o'clock. And we know lunch is 12 o'clock. So do we now say, players, we're going off. It is now lunchtime, seeing that the time has reached 12 o'clock. So no, the law tells us, first complete the over. Bowl the 3 balls. And after bowling the 3 balls, now you can take your lunch interval or your tea interval. There is one exception, and let's have a look at what that exception is. And that one exception is if less than 3 minutes remains before, and let's use lunch as an example, before we get to our lunch interval. And then something happens. And what is that thing that needs to happen? A batter is dismissed, or a batter retires, or the players needs to leave the field. If one of these 3 things happen with less than 3 minutes to go to our interval, we will then, in this instant, take the interval immediately. Yes, we stop mid-over. When we come back after the interval, we will then just complete that over. I'll give you an example to illustrate how 5.2 works. We know lunch is at 12 o'clock. So let's say South Africa is batting in the morning. We get at 11:58 a South African wicket falls. Let's say the 4th wicket falls at 11:58. So we know lunch is at 12 o'clock. And 11:58 a wicket fell. So what do we now do? It's 2 minutes to go to lunch. We know lunch is at 12 o'clock. So do we take lunch? Don't we take lunch? So this is where this particular clause comes in. And this is where we can activate this 12.5.2. Excuse me. And this clause tells us if a wicket falls within less than 3 minutes to go to our lunch interval, we will take lunch at that time. So in our example, the wicket fell at 11:58. And because this is less than 3 minutes to go to lunch, we will then take lunch immediately at 11:58. Last week, we've covered that. If lunch is 40 minutes, players or everyone needs to enjoy a 40-minute lunch. So if we took lunch at 11:58, first ball needs to be bowled 40 minutes later, which is 12:38. In modern cricket, there is this concept of the last hour of the match, and where the law wants a certain number of overs to be bowled in this last hour. So in a 5-day test match, where do you find this last hour? You'll find this last hour on the final day, on the 5th day. And let's say close of play is 5 o'clock. The last hour of the test match will be from 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock. So now the law wants a certain number of overs to be bowled in that last hour. So a minimum of 20 overs needs to be bowled in that last hour. As soon as we get to 4 o'clock, The umpires will then signal to everyone, including the scorers, that we have now reached the last hour. Now the law wants 20 overs to be bowled, no, a minimum of 20 overs to be bowled. So if we do get to 5 o'clock and only 15 overs has been bowled by the fielding side, play will continue for further 5 more overs. The law wants a minimum to be bowled in 20 in that hour, a minimum of 20. So if the over rate is slow, they will continue playing until they bowl 20. If the over rate is fast, like let's say we start the last hour at 4 o'clock and we get to 16:50 and we've bowled 20 overs. So what do we now do? We've already bowled our 20 overs, but now play needs to continue because we need to bowl a minimum of 20. We can bowl more. There's still 10 minutes to go until 5 o'clock. So even though we've bowled out 20, but because the law tells us a minimum to be bowled, play needs to continue up until 5 o'clock. When is the match concluded? As soon as a result is reached, we'll get to law 16 and we'll cover result. But as soon as a result is reached, one side scoring enough runs, the match is then done. The match is concluded. Match is also concluded if both minimum overs for the last hours are completed as well as we've reached our close of play. Match is also concluded under law 13, and we'll get to that in the next law, where the final innings is completed, match is concluded. Match is also concluded if, due to adverse conditions of, let's say, ground weather, light, whether it's raining on the day 5 or it is darkness set in on day 5 and no further play is possible in the day, and we've reached 5 o'clock already, match is also concluded. Next law covers the innings. So in more day cricket, like Test match cricket as an example, each side gets 2 innings. But the law will also allow for games to be played where sides only get 1 innings. But in most more day cricket these days, like Test match cricket, like 4-day cricket here in South Africa, teams get 2 innings each. But the law allows for teams only to have 1 innings, no issue. But usually it is 2 innings per side. The law is also flexible where it allows for an innings to be limited to a period of time or to a certain number of overs. So currently in Test match cricket, there are no limitations on any of the innings in terms of overs and time. Also in South Africa's Division 1 and 2 4-day cricket, no limitation in terms of you must bowl, you can only bowl a certain number of overs in an innings or a certain amount of time, no limitation. But the law is flexible. The law allows for innings to be limited. Like you can have a playing condition in place where it says 60 overs maximum in the first innings. Law allows for that. You can put a time span to it. First innings, maximum of 3 hours. All I'm saying is the law is flexible. It allows you to put these limitations. If there are limitations, and in a 1 innings match, the agreement needs to be the same for both innings. So if you want to limit the innings to a number of overs, let's say 80 overs per innings, in both sides needs to bat for 80 overs. The law also allows for in a 2 innings match, you can have agreement where you can uh, put a number of overs to the first innings or the second innings, just depending whatever your agreement is before the game starts. But the point, what point 2 is trying to tell us, the law is flexible. So yes, we do play two innings per side in test matches or in provincial 4-day cricket, but the law allows for flexibility. So in a two innings match, like test match cricket as an example, the law wants innings to be taken alternately. So in example, a test match between Pakistan and South Africa, let's say Pakistan win the toss and they go bat first. Once Pakistan is dismissed, South Africa then will go bat. Then after that, Pakistan to go bat again, and then after that, South Africa to go bat again. Innings needs to be taken alternately. There are exceptions, and we'll get to it when we do law 14 and 15, because we can have a follow-on, and we can have a forfeit of an innings. But usually, innings is to be taken alternately. So when does the law see a side innings to be completed? When is a side innings done? Let's have a look. Firstly, as soon as the side is all out, if it's, let's say the fielding side takes 10 wickets, side is all out, the law sees that innings now as done. That innings as completed. Also a completed innings at the fall of a wicket, or if a batter retires, there are still balls to be bowled, but there's no more batters to come in. Innings also completed. As soon as a captain declares an innings close, the law sees that innings as also completed. If a captain forfeits an innings, also the law sees it as a completed innings. And then lastly, I spoke about this in the previous law, where the law allows a bit of flexibility to limit your innings to a number of overs or to a period of time. So now what the law is telling us in point 5 is, if you did put a limit on, let's say, as an example, the number of overs, so you decided before the game started, each side to bat 60 overs in the first innings. So as soon as side A's batted 60 overs, even if they, let's say, 300 for the loss of only 2 wickets, as soon as they've reached 60 overs, that innings is also completed. The toss. Let's have a look at who needs to be at the toss as per the law, where the toss needs to take place, and what are the timings of the toss. Let's first have a look at who needs to be there. According to law, the law wants both captains to be there, non-negotiable. The two of them must be at the toss. Who else needs to be there? At least one umpire. Yes, preferably we want both umpires to be there, but if both are not available, at least one. So now we know who needs to be there. Two captains and at least one umpire, but preferably both. Where does the toss take place? According to the law, anywhere on the field of play. So as soon as you put your foot over the boundary rope, that is technically inside the field of play. So technically the toss can actually take place there, anywhere on the field of play. But we all know customary has been like this for many, many years. I think more than a century. The toss takes place at next to the match pitch. That's just customary, but according to law, toss can take place anywhere on the field. What are the timings of the toss? There's a 15-minute window period for the toss to take place. So let's use our Pakistan-South Africa test match as an example. Day 1, game starts at 10 o'clock. So according to law, toss needs to take place between 9:30 and 9:45. So yes, you can toss at 9:30. You can toss at 9:35. You can toss at 9:40 even at 9:45, as long as it's done in this 15-minute window period. As soon as the toss is done, whoever wins it needs to notify the opposing captain immediately whether they're going to bat or bowl. They cannot tell you, umpire, let me first go discuss this with my coach or think about it. No, you need to tell that captain, you need to tell me now. Toss is done. I need to know whether you're going to bat or bowl. And once that captain decided, I'm going to bat, as an example, then that decision cannot be changed afterwards. So follow on. So there is this concept in cricket where it allows a team to ask the other side to follow on. So what criteria needs to be in place where you can ask the other side to follow on? So in a two innings match of 5 days or more, test match cricket gets played over 5 days. I'll use that as an example. Here the law wants the side that batted first, they need to lead by at least 200 runs. If they lead by at least 200 runs, the option is on the table for the captain to ask the other side to go bat again or to go follow on. The captain doesn't have to exercise the option. If the captain decides, no, I want to go bat in my second innings again, no issue. But in a 5-day test match, if after both first innings are completed and the side that batted first lead by at least 200 runs, option is on the table to go bat, to ask the other side to follow on. So not all games are played over 5 days like Test match cricket. We know in South Africa, the Division 1 and Division 2 cricket get played over 4 days. And there the lead needs to be at least 150 runs if you want to ask the other side to go follow on or not. So that's for a 3 and a 4-day game. In a 2-day match, there the lead needs to be 100 runs. And in a 1-day game, and this is not a 1-day like a 20 over or 50 over game. This is where sides play 2 innings, but in in 1 day. So in that instance, minimum lead if it's a 1-day game, 75 runs. As soon as the captain wants the other side to go follow on, they need to notify the opposing captain that yes, I am exercising my right and asking you to follow on. And once the captain's made that decision, it cannot be then changed afterwards. Also, when it comes to the follow on, and when the first day's play is lost, an emphasis on the first day, you must lose the first day. No play took place on the first day. And if that is the case, not a single ball gets bowled on the first day. Umpire did not call play on the first day. And if that is the case, if you lose the whole first day and you come back on day 2 and it's nice, bright and sunny and you can start play on day 2, now what the laws say, because you lost the whole of the first day, we're only starting on day 2, you now look at the remaining days left, and when it comes to the follow-on number, here you now need to look at the remaining days that are left and what is the corresponding number. Okay, that's the theory. I'll give you an example to illustrate this. I'm going to use Pakistan, South Africa as an example. So they play a test match, and we know test match spans 5 days. Day 1, we get there, rains the whole day, not a single ball gets bowled, the umpire didn't call play. Players go back to the hotels in the evening, they get to the ground on day 2, nice, bright and sunny, and play can start at 10 o'clock. So now we lost the whole of the first day's play. So how many days left in our test match? 4 days left. So usually in a 5-day test match, to exercise the follow on, the lead needs to be at least 200 runs. That's in a normal 5-day game. But in my example, we lost the whole first day. No play took place. We came to day 2 and we could start on time. So now there are only 4 days remaining in our test match. So now when it comes to the what the follow-on needs to be at least, so in a 4-day game, 150 runs now, not 200 runs anymore. But the important thing is, must be the first day's play that you lost. So in modern cricket, The law allows for the captain of the batting side to declare an innings closed whenever the ball is dead. That option is there for the batting captain. If the captain feels I've got enough runs on the board, I want to declare, no issue, the law allows for it. The law also allows for a captain to forfeit, to give away either of his side's innings, and it needs to be done before the commencement of that innings. As soon as a captain forfeits an innings, that innings shall be seen as a completed innings. And as soon as a captain decided, I want to declare or I want to forfeit an innings, they need to notify the opposing captain. And once that call has been made, it then cannot be changed afterwards. In the previous slide, we covered the forfeiture of an innings. So far in Test match cricket, there's only been one forfeiture, and this happened in the year 2000 in a Test match between South Africa and England. Lots of rain around, and the then captain of England, Nasser Hussain, and then the late Hansie Cronje was captain of South Africa at the time. They then had a discussion, and it was decided that South Africa to forfeit their second innings. England then had to chase a 249 in certain number of overs, 76, and they got the total. But afterwards, it was actually found out that Hansie Cronje was speaking to certain bookmakers, and this match was fixed. So this game actually was scrapped from the record books. So only forfeits in Test match cricket so far, but it was also scrapped from the record books due to alleged match fixing between the then skipper of South Africa and a bookmaker. The result. So Test match cricket spans over two innings. So how do you get a result in two innings match? So what you'll do is you the side which scored a total runs in excess of that score after you've added both completed innings, that team will win the match. That's in a two innings game. The law also allows for a one innings game. So the one innings game is simple. Whoever scored the most runs in their one innings, that side will win the game. There's also this concept in cricket where umpires can award a match. Well, let's have a look when umpire can award a match. Umpire can award a match if a side concedes defeat or, in the opinion of the umpires, a side refuses to play. So if so, the umpire can then award the match to either side. But be careful. Yes, this is in the law, but before taking this action of awarding a match, importantly, umpires will find out why the side is refusing to play before taking this action. So even though it is in the law, but don't just make this call, go find out why the umpire made that call. I'm going to play you a video of a test match that happened many years ago between England and Pakistan, and let's listen to the video.
Over the last 140 years, more than 2,300 test matches have been played. Over 1,500 of these have ended in a result. Over 700 have been drawn, 2 have been tied, and only 1 has ended in a forfeit.
The thing I remember about the forfeit test is none of us had a clue what was going on, really.
According to law 1632, a match shall be lost by a side which, in the opinion of the umpires, refuses to play. On August 20, 2006, this rule was invoked for the first time on an afternoon that swung wildly between high drama and farce. An hour before tea on the fourth day, at the end of the 56th over of England's second innings, umpires Darrell Hare and Billy Doctrove asked for a change of ball.
It was one of the reserve umpires came out with a new box of balls. It was clear they were changing the ball. No big deal there. But instead of asking the bowling side to choose the new one, he asked the batting side, and you think, oh, hello, interesting.
The umpires then awarded England 5 penalty runs, confirming that they had pulled Pakistan up for tampering with the ball. The trouble was there was no evidence. No jelly, no dirt, no sandpaper.
A lot of people that looked at that ball have different opinions. Some feel it was clearly tampered with, and some think it was more than just playable. It was a good-looking ball. Others think you can see some evidence of scratching, but none that suggests it's been done on purpose and by hand, or even by a foreign object. So very mixed views.
It was after the tea break, taken more than 15 overs, after the 5-run penalty, that things really escalated. The umpires walked out, the English batsmen walked out, the Pakistanis didn't.
They felt hugely wronged, you know, they weren't sure that whether they wanted to come out.
After waiting for 20 minutes, the umpires walked to the Pakistan dressing room, came back a few minutes later and took the bails off.
And the match is aborted or abandoned or cancelled or no, wrong, none of that. We hear the match has been awarded to England. Wow.
That wasn't the end of it either. After a protest lasting almost an hour, and following discussions with match referee Mike Proctor, Inzamam Al-Haq finally leads the Pakistan team out again. This time, though, the umpires stay put. They've made their decision, and they're sticking by it.
My view of that was that it was very inflexible. Mike Proctor was the match referee in a very difficult position. I think there should have been an instruction from on high, from the chief executive or chairman of ICC, that this is a unique situation because of the unproven circumstances. In a proven circumstance of a tampered ball and a side refusing to come out, fair enough, but this was unproven.
Several hours after the bails were taken off, the ICC and the English and Pakistan cricket boards confirm in a joint statement that the match had indeed been forfeited. The hits kept on coming. With no evidence to back up the accusation, the ICC dropped the ball tampering charges. But Inzamam was banned for 4 one-dayers for refusing to lead his team out. They also removed Hare from international duty, who in turn threatened to sue the ICC and the PCB for racial discrimination. 2 years later, the ICC overturned the result from a Pakistan loss to a draw. But the MCC refused to recognize this.
It was all incredibly nasty and another stain on the game. And there's never been any concrete proof that Pakistan were in the wrong anyway.
To date, this remains the only scorecard in history to state England awarded the match, opposition refused to play. In the end, though, there was only one real loser: cricket itself.
So yes, it is in the law book, but before applying this particular law of awarding a match, get all your ducks in a row. And previously, I mentioned how a side can win a match, but in modern cricket, not all games have a winner. We also find ties or draws. Yeah. Over 5 days, you can have a tie or even a draw. So what is a tie? So a tie is if both sides has completed both their innings and the scores are still equal. So now both these conditions needs to be met for the game to be a tie. So what are these conditions again? Both innings needs to be completed and scores are still equal if you add up all the scores. I'll give you just a simpler examples. I'll use the round numbers to illustrate this. Let's say South Africa, Pakistan test match. So South Africa go bat in their first innings and they get bowled out for 200 in their first innings. Pakistan go bat in their first innings and they get bowled out for 100 in their first innings. So now South Africa go bat in their second innings and they get bowled out for 100. So now if you add up South Africa's first and second innings, it adds up to 300. So now Pakistan will go bat in their second innings. Now South Africa, seeing that Pakistan scored 100 in their first innings, they now need to score 301 to win the game. But South Africa gets the 10th Pakistani wicket in the second innings with a score on exactly 200. So now in total, South Africa scored 300 over their two innings, and both their innings were completed. And Pakistan scored in total 300 over both their innings, and both their innings also completed. So now this meet the criteria for the result of the match to be a tie. So both innings completed of both sides, and adding up the scores of the two innings of both sides, the scores are equal, and that is a tie. So a draw, we've covered how to win a game. We've covered the tie, and so the result of the match will be seen, as a draw. As an example, let's say Pakistan needs to score 300 to win to win the game in their second innings, and let's say South Africa at the end of the game, day 5 o'clock. Pakistan is on 250 for 2 wickets. So they had to score 300 to win, but we got to 5 o'clock. It's now the end of the day, end of the test match. Pakistan didn't get the score of 300, nor did South Africa get 10 Pakistani wickets, because the day ended at 250, let's say, for 5. So this is seen as a drawn test match. Let's look at an example of a drawn test match that happened between England and Zimbabwe many years ago.
Heath Streak will be the bowler. England can be smiling at the end of this over. They need 13 runs to win this match. Zimbabwe in no hurry. Campbell's going to make sure that every corner of this boundary is patrolled. Streak tonight.
One boundary, anything could happen.
Down the leg side. Perfectly legitimate today. One ball gone with no runs scored.
One-day cricket, it would be illegal. In Test cricket, it's quite legitimate. So they bowled very well, Heath Streak, and particularly Guy Whittle, I think, who came on. And the game was probably still in England's favour, but he used to have dragged it back and bowled very well.
Knight's got it out to long off. Darren Gough prepared to sacrifice his wicket, but he's got back for 2. Flower, the fielder, making sure there'd be no overthrow, allowed England back for 2. I think Zimbabwe will settle for that. That's what Knight's looking for. He's chipped it over his head for 6. Unbelievable. Nick Knight's got his streak away over mid-wicket for 6 runs. Now England are back in it. England now need 5 runs to win off 3 balls. The England supporters are going crazy.
5 or 3 balls. Does he leave everyone on the boundary, or does he bring someone in?
Nick Knight, the hero of the hour now. That 6 runs has made all the difference. Have a look at this.
If you keep firing it in the same area, The batsman will eventually be able to adjust, and that's what's happened here. Nick Knight, 92 not out now, 1 6 5 fours, and that has changed everything. 5 runs now needed from 3 balls.
A lot of critics of one-day cricket, but that shot would never have been played in a test match 15 years ago. Here's streak tonight. England require 5. It's wide outside the off stump. No signal from umpire Ian Robinson. England now requiring 5 off 2. How does Heath Streak feel?
That is required. Sorry, that is required.
Full toss. Knight can only get it away for 1. Goff will definitely come back for the second run. He's made it with a dive. Streak can't take the ball cleanly. England scramble 2, 3 to win off the last ball. We've seen one-day finishes all over the world. We've never seen a test match finish like this. Now, the batsmen are in conference. The big 3 for Zimbabwe in conference. Campbell has told the bowler what to do. He goes out onto the boundary edge. Andy Flower wishes Heath Streak good luck. Nick Knight takes a few deep breaths. England need 3 runs to win off the very last ball to win this test match. Can Nick Knight conjure up another boundary? One feel it has to be a boundary now for England to win this match. Here comes Streak. Knight's down the track, he's got it out to deep cover, there's a man there. This too will bring the scores level. Andy Flower's got it. Darren Goff vainly goes for the 3rd runs. The scores are level, but the match is drawn. England finished tantalisingly.
So you can see, yes, the scores are level. England had to chase, so had to score 205, but they ended up on 204. But this is a drawn game, and why? England is only 5 wickets down. So if a boundary is scored before the batter has completed sufficient run to win the match, the whole boundary allowances will be credited to the striker's score. Statement of result. If a side batting last wins the match without losing all his wickets, the result will be stated as a win by a number of wickets still to fall. So Pakistan had to score, let's say, 250 to win. They get the score with only 5 wickets down. The result will then be stated Pakistan win by 5 wickets. So if the fielding side wins the match, the result will then be shown as win by a certain number of runs. So if the match is decided by where a side conceded defeat or refused to play, the result will be stated as match conceded or match awarded. So what happens if there is mistakes in scoring? So if there is a mistake in the scoring and the umpires discovered that there was a mistake, let's say the batting side had to score 300 to win. According to the scoreboard, they get to 300, let's say, for 4 wickets. As the player walks off the field, scorers tell the umpires, oops, we made a mistake. The batting side actually still need to score 4 runs to win. What do we do now? Now the law tells us we need to tell the players to go back. The batting side still needs to score 4 runs to win, so we need to go back. So if there's still a number of overs to be bowled in the last hour, there's still time left, we need to go tell them to go back. There's no more time left. If you reach the agreed close of play, no more time left, then unfortunately the game will be a draw. But you need to tell players to go back. And once the umpires have agreed with the scorers with regards to the correctness of the score at the end of the game. Scorers are happy, everyone is happy, that is the score. Then the result cannot be changed afterwards. Cannot come later or the next day saying, oops, umpire, sorry, there was a mistake. Scores, no. As soon as both umpires are happy, scorers are happy, after that, result cannot be changed. The last law that I'm covering, before we take a 10-minute break, and then Tom will cover laws 18 till 20. Law 17 covers the over. So how many balls in an over? Currently, the law states 6 balls in an over. And you need to bowl these overs alternately. You cannot bowl 2, 3 overs from the same end. You need to bowl 1 over from the one end. Once 6 balls is bowled from this end, you need to then bowl from the other end 6 balls, and that's how you need to bowl overs alternately. When does an over start? Over starts when the bowler gives his or her first step, when the bowler starts the run up. That's when the over starts. If the bowler doesn't have a run up, when that back foot lands, that is according to the law, technically when the over starts. When it comes to validity of the balls, 6 balls or 6 valid balls needs to be bowled in the over, but there are times where even though the ball was delivered, that ball will not count as one of the valid balls of the over. For those instances, what are they? Firstly, if the ball was called dead or considered dead before the striker had opportunity to play at the ball, the law sees that as ball being dead. That ball, even if it was delivered, will not count. Secondly, striker was not ready to receive the ball. Striker got distracted. And if that is the case, ball not to count as one of the valid balls. If the bowler bowls a no ball or a wide, that will not be a valid ball in the over. And lastly, player returning without permission, not a valid ball in the over as soon as that player touches the ball. Illegal fielding, also that ball not to count as one of the valid balls in the over. Deliberate attempt to distract the striker before the striker received the ball. That ball also not a valid ball. And lastly, deliberate distraction, deception or obstruction of the batter. That ball also not seen as one of the valid balls of the over. The law also wants, as soon as 6 valid balls are bowled, before the bowler's end umpire now goes to the striker's end, the bowler's end umpire needs to call over before leaving his or her position. They need to verbally or loudly call over, and then they can go to the striker's end. What happens if an umpire miscounts? Let's see what the law tells us. If an umpire do miscount, and we try not to miscount, but we do miscount. And what happens if we do? The law tells us that over counted by the umpire to stand. So if the umpires allow a 5 ball over, that 5 ball over to stand. If the umpires allow a 7 ball over, that 7 ball over also to stand. So very important part of our job, we need to try to get our ball counting spot on. 6 valid balls in the over. Shouldn't be allowing less, nor should we be allowing more. But if we do miscount, and it can happen, it needs to be exception to the rule, over counted by the umpire to stand. Also, the law tells us that if an umpire do miscount and allows a 7th ball to be bowled, and now the bowler bowls the 7th ball, and that 7th ball is now a no ball. And then after you allowed the 7th ball, which was a no ball, and then you, the umpires, realize, oops, we allowed an extra ball. So the law gives you the power to actually call over. Yes, you've allowed the 7th ball an extra ball you shouldn't have. And yes, the 7th ball was a no ball. And then only you realized The law gives you, the umpires, the power after realizing we've allowed a seventh ball, even though the seventh ball was not a legal delivery. You can then call over as soon as you realize that you've allowed more than 6 valid balls. Does the law allow bowlers to change ends? Yes, the law wants bowlers to change ends. Bowlers should not be bowling consecutive overs. So bowlers can change in as often as he or she wants, as long as they don't bowl 2 overs consecutively. Bowler cannot bowl the first over and then bowl the second over and the third and the fourth. No, that doesn't happen. That cannot happen according to the law. Bowler 1 needs to bowl over 1, then bowler 2 needs to bowl over 2. Bowler 1 can then bowl over 3 again. The law wants the bowler to finish an over that he or she is busy with, unless that bowler becomes injured or ill or gets suspended under any of the laws. But if a bowler starts an over, that bowler needs to complete that over, unless they get suspended or injured or ill. Sometimes over is left uncompleted. If that is the case, let's say at the start of the interval or interruption, when play resumes after the interval or interruption, that over first needs to be completed. Then you can start a new over. So what happens if a bowler is injured or ill or suspended during an over? So if a bowler gets injured or ill while running up, the bowler, let's say, pulls a hammy. What now happens? The bowler is now injured. The law allows for that bowler now to be replaced. The over now needs to be completed by another bowler. And this new bowler that's now going to complete the over should not have bowled the previous over, nor is this bowler allowed to bowl the new over.
So law 18 is scoring runs. How are runs scored in cricket? Let's see what the law says. Law tells us that the score shall be reckoned by runs, and a run is scored in the following 3 ways. The first way a run can be scored, so often as the batters at any time while the ball is in play have crossed and made good their ground from end to end, that will be considered a run. Of course, we know that runs are also scored when a boundary is scored, and law 19 is boundaries. We will look at boundaries in more detail later in this presentation. When penalty runs are awarded, that is another way that a team can score runs. And throughout these laws, we will be touching on when penalty runs can be awarded to the batting side and when penalty runs can be awarded to the fielding side. Now, law also talks about short runs. What is a short run? A run is short if a batter or batters fail to make good his or her ground in turning for a further run. So if attempting to run 2 and one of the batters or both of the batters turn short and they complete the second run, only the second run will be recorded. The first run will not be recorded. Remember our signal for short run. That will mean that for that delivery, even though 2 runs were attempted, 1 was short, so only 2 will be scored. Sorry, only 1 will be scored for that delivery. Although a short run shortens the succeeding one, the latter, if completed, shall not be regarded as short. So as mentioned, if when turning, one of the batters or both are turning short, only the first run will be considered short. the second run, if completed, will be valid. Also, a striker setting off for the first run from in front of his or her popping crease may do so without penalty. What does that mean? I'll give you an example using a South African batter, David Miller. He often, for fast bowlers, stands 1 or 2 feet outside of his popping crease. So when he plays a shot, law tells us here that he doesn't have to go back into his crease to start his run. He can start running from where he's hit the ball 1 or 2 feet outside of the popping crease. And as long as he makes his ground at the bowler's end, that will be a completed single. Now we have 2 types of short runs: unintentional short runs and deliberate short runs. Let's learn first about unintentional short runs. If either batter runs short, the umpire concerned shall call and signal short run when the ball becomes dead, and that run shall not be scored. If after either or both batters run short, a boundary is scored, the umpire concerned shall disregard the short running and shall not call or signal short run, unless the boundary is a result of an overthrow or willful act of a fielder. If both batters run short in the same run, this shall be regarded as only one short run. If more than one run is short, then all runs called as short runs shall not be scored in that delivery. And now if there has been more than one short run in that delivery, the bowlers and umpire shall inform the scorers the number of runs to be recorded for that delivery. At provincial cricket, we have radios where we can communicate to the scorers to tell the scorers that scorers on this particular delivery, they attempted 3 runs, but 2 of them were short, so only 1 run was complete and only 1 run should be scored. It's easy when you've got the radios to communicate with the scorers. If you don't have radios, then you need to somehow get the message out to the scorers and make sure that at your next interval or when the game is over, you check with the scorers that they only recorded 1 run for that delivery where there were 2 short runs in the delivery, because it's difficult to signal to them. They know this signal is short run, but they don't know how many runs were short in the delivery. We also have deliberate short runs that this video explains. This video will explain how to deal with unintentional short runs and also how to deal with deliberate short runs. And we as umpires need to identify the difference when we see it between a deliberate short run and an unintentional short run, because they are dealt with very differently as per the law. Let's watch the video.
Hello guys, welcome to my channel. This video is a new addition to the analysis series. Let's get started. On 15th of November 2018, second day of second test match between Sri Lanka and England, a strange incident happened. Let's watch the footage. Looks like a normal short run case, isn't it? Well, that's not the case. Let's see what umpire's decision was. If you did not understand what he signaled, he initially disallowed all the runs scored by the batsman on that delivery. Further, he informed the batsman about deliberate short running, and awarded 5 penalty runs to the fielding side. Now, let's see what the cricket law has to say about running short. There are two categories in this, unintentional and deliberate. Let's take a look at unintentional short running first. If a batsman runs short, then the umpire shall call and signal short run as soon as the ball becomes dead, and that run shall not be scored. For example, if they run 2 and if they run 1 short, then only 1 run will be scored. Now let's take a look at deliberate short run. Cricket law states that if either umpire considers that one or both the batsmen deliberately ran short, then wait for the ball to become dead and further disallow all the runs scored on that delivery, return the batsmen to their original end, and award 5 penalty runs to the fielding side. Now, let's see why the umpire considered this incident as deliberate short running. As you can see, both the batsmen start running and then striker Roshan Silva feels that the ball will reach the boundary. But upon seeing Moeen Ali has stopped the ball, he runs back to the striker's end. But in between, the striker Roshan Silva did not ground the bat at all, which made the umpire to consider this as deliberate short run. If he had at least tried to ground the bat, then most likely that the umpire would not have considered this as a deliberate short run. 5-run penalty for this feels a bit harsh, isn't it? Now let's see why exactly this law exists. In an IPL match between Mumbai Indians and Kings 11, while chasing 231, Mumbai Indians needed 16 runs of the last over. Kieron Pollard, who faces the first ball of the over, strikes the ball and sets off for the run, thinking that he can come back for 2. But upon realizing that he cannot make it, he runs back to the striker's end without completing the first run. And it can be seen that he did that deliberately as he wanted to get back the strike. It is clearly unfair as he got 1 run and also he came back to the strike. To prevent the players from doing such things, this law exists. But in Roshan Silva's case, he was not trying to gain any unfair advantage. But since he did not make any effort to complete the first run, it was ruled deliberate short run. Still have any doubts with this? Do let me know in the comment section. If you like the video, then hit the like button and share with all your friends. If you have not subscribed yet, then don't forget to subscribe for more such contents.
Okay, so now we know how to deal with an unintentional short run, and we also know how to deal with a deliberate short run. So we need to first see what exactly the law says in terms of how to deal with a deliberate short run. And then we are going to get into a practical demonstration or a real life scenario where you need to tell me how many runs should be awarded to either side. How are we going to deal with deliberate short runs? The law tells us that if either umpire considers that one or both batters deliberately ran short, the umpire shall, when the ball is dead, call and signal short run and inform the other umpire of what has occurred. Subsequently, the bowler's end umpire shall disallow all runs to the batting side. So Murray Rasmus in that video used the dead ball signal because there is no signal for disallowing all runs to the batting side. Then the bowler's end umpire shall return any not out batter to his or her original end. Signal no ball or wide to the scorers if a no ball or a wide was delivered, which wasn't the case in the example we've just seen. We need to award 5 penalty runs to the fielding side. Remember our signal for 5 penalty runs to the fielding side? We put one hand on the opposite shoulder and we leave it there. Murray Rasmus was rubbing that shoulder just to indicate to the scorers that the hand is on the shoulder, it's not tapping the shoulder. If we award 5 penalty runs to the batting side, then we tap the shoulders. But in this scenario, when there's an instant of deliberate short runs by the batter or batters, we just hold the opposite shoulder. We need to inform everybody, and we need to report this incident to the governing body in charge of the match. Okay, so big punishment for deliberate short runs because it is cheating by the batting side. So we've learned the theory. Now let's put it into practice. Quiz question 18.1 and 18.2. How many runs are scored by the batting side in this scenario? And 18.2, how many runs are awarded to the fielding side in this scenario, if any? Okay, so you're going to type in, after watching the video, 2 answers. 18.1, you're going to write 0 runs or 2 runs or 1 run. And then 18.2, you're going to write 0 runs or 1 run or 2 runs or 3 runs or 4 runs or 5 runs. Up to you. You know the law. You answer the question. So here is our first quiz question. Type into the chat box 18.1 and then 18.2 and write the answers for each question. Here we go.
Trouble. Oh, gee, it was a pretty well positioned throw, wasn't it?
Nice work, Maxie.
I think they're talking about a non-striker perhaps leaving the box, leaving the crease a little bit prematurely, I believe.
Oh, wow.
There you go.
Right, yeah.
So Maxie,
No wonder you didn't run him out.
It was for a deliberate running short. So Tim David's run down, knew he just had to touch about a metre out of the crease to be able to get back and face the last delivery.
Okay, so you've watched the scenario. Now you can type your quiz answer into the chat box. 18.1, how many runs are scored by the batting side in that scenario? 18.2, how many runs are awarded to the fielding side in that scenario? After I've finished my presentation, I'll come back to these quiz questions and we will give you the answers then. Let's look at some of the laws where penalty runs are awarded. We've just spoken about deliberate short runs. 5 penalty runs awarded to the fielding side. In law 24.4, we will cover if a player returns to the field without permission from the umpires and comes into contact with the ball, they will cost their team 5 penalty runs. 5 penalty runs will be awarded to the batting side. If there's an instant of illegal fielding, which is covered in law 26.4, there will be 5 penalty runs awarded to the batting side. No balls and wides are also considered penalty runs. Those are only 1 penalty run each. If there is illegal fielding, that's law 28.2, 5 penalty runs will be awarded to the batting side. 26.4 is illegal practice on the field, and that can be either batters practicing illegally or fielding side practicing illegally. Law 28.3, if the ball hits the unworn helmet of the fielding side, which is placed behind the wicket keeper, the ball automatically becomes dead and 5 penalty runs will be awarded to the batting side. Law 41 and Law 42, unfair play and player conduct. There are various awards of penalty runs for offences committed by players on both sides. Boundaries we will look at in more detail in Law 19. Are there any runs scored when a batter is dismissed? Let's see what the law says. When a batter is dismissed, any runs for penalties awarded to either side shall stand. No other runs shall be credited to the batting side except in the following circumstances. If a batter is dismissed obstructing the field, the batting side shall also score any runs completed before the obstruction. If, however, the obstruction prevented a catch from being taken, then no runs other than penalties shall be scored. If a batter is dismissed run out, the batting side shall also score any runs completed before the wicket was fairly put down and that batter was run out. So if a batter is run out on the third run and they did not complete the third run, it means they would have completed the first 2 runs. So those first 2 runs will count. Only the third run will not count because they did not complete that run before the run out was affected. If, however, a striker who has a runner is dismissed run out, any runs completed by the runner and the other batter shall be completely disallowed. Okay, you might all be surprised that the law still talks about runners, but yes, in especially veterans cricket around the world, runners are still allowed and in use. Unless stated otherwise in any of the laws, if the ball is struck by the bat, all runs scored by the batting side shall be credited to the striker, except in the following circumstances. An award of 5 penalty runs, which shall be scored as penalty runs. So those runs don't go to a specific batter, even if it's 5 penalty runs awarded to the batting side. The 1-run penalty for no ball will be called or scored as no ball extras. If the ball is not struck by the bat, runs shall be scored as penalty runs, byes, leg byes, or no ball extras, or wides, whichever the case might be. If byes or leg byes accrue from a no ball, only the 1-run penalty for no ball shall be scored as a no ball extra, and the remainder of the byes or leg byes as ran by the batters shall be recorded appropriately. So we've learned when batters' runs are added to their total. When will bowlers have runs added to their bowling figures? All runs scored by the striker will be debited against the bowler. All runs scored as no ball extras shall go against the bowler's figures. And all runs scored as wides shall go against the bowler's figures. Byes and leg byes are not counted against the bowler's figures. When the striker is dismissed in any of the modes of dismissals listed below, the not out batter shall return to his or her original end. If the striker is out bowled, then the non-striker will remain at the non-striker's end. If the striker is out stumped, then the non-striker will remain at the non-striker's end. If the striker is given out hit the ball twice, then once again the non-striker will remain at the non-striker's end. If the striker is given out leg before wicket, the non-striker will remain at the non-striker's end. If the striker is out hit wicket, the non-striker will remain at the non-striker's end. And of course, in all these instances, the incoming batter will be on strike. The new batter will be on strike. This is a new one, changed in October 2022, if I remember correctly. If a striker is out caught, then even if the catch was taken after the batters had crossed while the ball was in the air, law tells us now that the non-striker will have to return to the non-striker's end. So when a striker is out caught, the new batter will be on strike. That is, of course, if we're still in the same over. When there is a obstructing the field dismissal, where the obstruction or distraction prevents the striker from being out caught, then the non-striker will remain or return to his or her original end at the non-striker's end. Next law we're looking at today is Law 19, boundaries. Before the toss, the umpires shall determine the boundary of the field of play, which shall be fixed for the duration of the match. You cannot for one innings have the boundary at, say, 65 meters and then decide, okay, because the next batting team is a lot better than the team which batted first, we're going to increase the size of the boundaries to 70 meters for the second innings. No, law tells us that the boundary shall be fixed for the duration of the match. The boundary shall be determined such that no part of any sight screen will at any stage of the match be within the field of play. Quite often around the country and around the world, I've seen fields where the sight screen actually forms part of the boundary. This is allowed as per law, as long as the sight screen is not inside the field of play. However, there are playing conditions in professional cricket and now also in amateur cricket to help the safety of fielders. The playing conditions specify that any object outside of the boundary, a permanent fixture, should be at least 3 yards outside of the boundary. For example, in international cricket and some big tournaments around the world, you have those digital boundary boards which display advertising throughout the match. Those are quite painful when fielders slide over the boundary into them. So to try and prevent the fielders from sliding into those boundary boards, those advertising boards, they need to be a minimum of 3 yards, which is 2.72 meters away from the edge of the boundary. That 3 yards clearance is for safety precautions. So even though the law allows it, we shouldn't really be seeing sight screens making up part of the boundary anymore, because if a fielder slides into that side screen, there is a huge risk of injury in that. Practical, the boundary shall be marked by means of a continuous white line or by an object in contact with the ground. And in the slide after this one, we will see examples of how a boundary can be marked. If the boundary is marked by a white line, the edge of the line nearest to the pitch shall be the boundary. Obviously, the lines are usually a couple of centimeters thick. So where does the boundary actually start? Law tells us here that is the edge of the line nearest to the pitch shall be regarded as the boundary. An object such as a flag, post, or board used merely to highlight the position of a line marked on the ground must be placed beyond the boundary and is not itself to be considered as the boundary. So let's have a look at some graphical illustrations of the previous slide. So as mentioned, if this is our boundary line going around, the inside edge of that boundary line is actually the boundary. If we have a fence as a boundary, the inside edge of that fence is the boundary. If we have a rope, and most stadiums across the world have boundary ropes, the inside edge of that rope is the boundary. So if the ball hits the rope on the full, it has crossed the actual boundary line, which is the inside edge of that rope. Therefore, that would be a boundary 6. As mentioned, if we have posts or flags pitched into the ground and a line beneath them, the flags and the posts are actually not the boundary themselves. They are just an indication to the umpires as to plus minus where the boundary line is. If the boundary is marked by means of an object that is in contact with the ground, the boundary will be the edge of the grounded part of the object which is nearest the pitch. As I've explained with the rope, it is the inside edge of that rope that is the boundary. Where there is no white line or object providing continuous marking, such as flags, posts, or boards, may be used to mark specific points on the boundary. The boundary shall be the imaginary straight line on the ground joining the two nearest marked points. I've had a few matches where there was a boundary rope, but that boundary rope did not go completely around the field of play. There was a gap of maybe 15 meters between the one end of the rope and the other end of the rope. So what the coach did of the home side is he used 4 or 5 cones that they normally use during their warm-up and put those small cones in between the gap where there was no rope. And law tells us here that it's not a round line or curved line that we must imagine. It's straight lines from one cone to the next. That is how we should imagine that boundary when we are using objects and we don't have a continuous white line or a full rope that doesn't have any gaps. A boundary that cannot be identified shall be determined by the umpires before the toss. An obstacle within the field of play shall not be regarded as a boundary unless so determined by the umpires before the toss. In lecture number 1 last week, we spoke about if your field has got a set of rugby poles or a set of soccer poles or even a tree inside the boundary, what do you do when the ball hits those rugby poles, soccer poles, or the tree inside the boundary? Remember, you are not the first umpire to officiate a match at that field. There is a local custom for how it is treated when the ball hits the object inside the field of play. Is it a boundary 4? Is it a boundary 6? Or is it play on? The batters just keep running. Ask the home captain, ask the ground staff and confirm that local custom at the toss so that the away team is informed. Now, what happens if a dog runs onto the field of play, for example, ball is hit in the direction of that dog along the ground, and boom, the ball hits the dog? Do we signal boundary 4? Do we signal boundary 6? Do we let play continue, or do we call and signal dead ball? Law tells us that a person or animal coming onto the field of play while the ball is in play shall not be regarded as a boundary unless the umpires determine otherwise at the time that contact between the ball and such a unauthorized person or animal is made. The decision shall be made separately for each separate occurrence. So you, as the bowlers and umpire, you need to judge if the ball had not hit the dog, would it have gone on to cross the boundary along the floor? If you feel that yes, the ball was going fast enough and it hit the dog half a meter before the boundary, and if it didn't hit the dog, it would have gone on to hit the rope, the boundary rope, and go for 4, then you call and signal boundary 4. If you feel that the ball was not going to go over the boundary rope, and because the ball hit the dog, there was a disadvantage to either the batting side because they've lost out on runs, or there was a disadvantage to the fielding side because they missed out on a run out opportunity, then you call and signal dead ball. Okay, so you need to make that decision as the bowlers and umpire from what you see in terms of how fast the ball is traveling and how far it is or was from the boundary when it hit the dog. Let's have a look at a video of a match between SA Under-19 and the home side KwaZulu-Natal Inland Tuskers. This match was played at the Pietermaritzburg Oval, which has a tree about 3 to 5 meters inside the boundary. And the local custom there is if the ball hits that tree, whether along the ground or if it hits the highest leaf of the tallest branch, we automatically call and signal boundary 4. Okay, so let's have a look and see what happened in this scenario.
It's a single that was brilliantly timed. There we go, that's gone, Miles. Oh. But it might only be 4 if it touches the tree. That's the biggest 4 you'll ever see. Christo?
Ahmed, cut the trees down here.
That's 100-meter 4.
Cut the trees down, brother.
The best part is when the analysts do the projection like they do in golf, it will be showing a carry of 110 meters, but it's only 4 runs.
It's the biggest 4 I've seen, Ahmed. Boast really is coming and he's...
I just want to highlight as well here, good umpiring practice by our colleague Katson Tuli. The ball hit the tree, not very easy to see, but you can see the fielders, they know the law because they are the home team. The fielders start to signal boundary 4 here because they saw and heard the ball hitting the tree. And as the ball comes back, Katson Tuli asks the bowler to see it to check if the ball was damaged when it hit the tree. So local custom in Pietermaritzburg, however high that ball was, and even though it was going over the boundary for 6, if the ball hits the tree, whether along the ground or on the full, boundary 4 will be called and signaled by the bowlers and umpire, as we saw Katson truly do in that scenario. Runs scored from boundaries. Boundary 6 will be scored if the ball has been struck by the bat, very important, and is first grounded beyond the boundary without having been in contact with the ground within the field of play. This shall apply even if the ball has previously touched a fielder. So if a fielder attempts to take a catch on the boundary and the ball bursts through his or her hands and lands up outside of the field of play, bouncing for the first time over the boundary, then that will be a boundary 6. But the important part of this definition is right at the start of the second line. The ball has to be struck by the bat to be a boundary 6. Okay. Very important. That's going to be crucial in our quiz question 19.1, coming up after the definition of boundary 4. Law tells us that a boundary 4 will be scored when a ball that is grounded beyond the boundary, whether struck by the bat or not, very important, was first grounded within the boundary or has not been struck by the bat. Okay. So definition for boundary 6 and definition for boundary 4 are in front of you. Now I'm going to give you a scenario where you need to tell me what is the umpire going to signal in this scenario. Okay, so quiz question 19.1. What signals will the umpire make for this scenario? The scenario is as follows. A fast bowler bowls a ball, which is a short-pitched delivery, also known as a bouncer. The striker attempts a hook shot, but misses the ball with both his bat and his gloves. The ball goes on to hit the top of the striker's helmet, and it flies without bouncing in the field of play over the boundary into the stands. Okay, what will the umpire signal in that scenario? I'll give you a clue. There are at least 2 signals that you need to signal in this scenario. I'll repeat the scenario. Bowler bowls a short pitch delivery. It's a very fast bouncer. It bounces high up. The striker attempts a hook shot, misses the ball, does not hit the ball with his or her bat or glove holding the bat. The ball goes on to hit the top of the striker's helmet, and it flies from the top of the striker's helmet over the boundary into the stands. Is that a boundary 4? Is that a boundary 6? Is it leg buys? Is it buys? What are the signals that the bowlers and umpire is going to make? We will go through the answers for these quiz questions after my presentation. Runs scored from boundaries. When a boundary is scored, the batting side shall be awarded whichever is the greater of the allowance for the boundary or the runs completed by the batters together with the run in progress if they had already crossed at the instant the boundary crosses or the ball crosses the boundary. Okay, so I'll give you an example to illustrate what the law is telling us here. And it's happened in Australia, where they used to have very big boundaries in the early 90s, where a ball was hit towards the boundary and there was a long chase for a fielder, and the batters actually managed to cross for a 5th run Okay, so they ran 1, 2, 3, 4, and had crossed for the 5th run when the ball trickled over the boundary. So now, because the ball has gone over the boundary, you would think easy, straightforward, boundary 4. But in point number 2 here, law tells us that if the batters have ran more than the boundary allowance, then the runs that they have ran will count. Okay, so the greater of the allowance for the boundary, in this scenario, boundary 4, or the runs completed by the batters together with the run in progress if they had already crossed at the instant that the ball crosses the boundary. So in my scenario where the batters had crossed for the 5th run when the ball went over the boundary, then they will not be awarded 4, they will be awarded 5 according to law. Very rare because boundaries nowadays are a lot smaller. You see a lot of 2s being run, very few 3s are being run nowadays. So 5, highly unlikely for batters to run 5 before the ball crosses the boundary. The scoring of penalty runs by either side is not affected by the scoring of a boundary. And obviously those penalty runs will always be added to the boundary if they happen on the same delivery. Now let's watch a video explaining to us boundary catching and the challenges that umpires face or need to consider whether to award boundary 6 or boundary 4 or out court.
Boundary catching. In cricket, a catch is considered to be fair if the fielder is within the field of play and the ball hasn't touched the ground before he or she catches it. The fielder must have complete control both over the ball and his or her own movement. Can a batsman be caught over the boundary? Well, this being cricket, the answer is yes and no. If the fielder catches the ball like this, with part of the body grounded outside the field of play, then the lucky old batsman is not only not out, but also scores a 6. However, if in the same situation the fielder has leapt for the ball from within the boundary, but not from outside it, caught it whilst airborne over the boundary, but managed to throw it up in the air before touching the ground, he or she can then step back into the field of play to complete the catch. It doesn't matter if the fielder throws it to a teammate or completes the catch on his or her own. In this scenario, the same batsman who just scored 6 would in fact have been out. As they frequently say, it's a funny old game. For Oodle's more details on this subject, take a look at Laws 19 and 33 in MCC's The Laws of Cricket.
Okay, so we've learned the theory. Now let's apply it. And remember that we are applying the current laws of cricket. The International Cricket Council has adopted new playing conditions for this law, but they are not yet written into the laws of cricket. So as the laws stand currently, is this a boundary 6 or is this out court? Let's watch the video, and you need to type into the chat box after having watched the video 19.2 out court or 19.2 boundary 6. And I'm playing it without sound because the commentators give it away. So the fielder has caught the ball inside the field of play. Then he realizes his momentum is going to take him outside the field of play, so he throws it up. Once he's outside the field of play, he makes sure that he jumps up in the air and is not touching the ground when he palms the ball back up. So he catches it inside the field of play, throws it up, goes outside, jumps, juggles, goes back inside the field of play and completes the catch. According to the current laws of cricket, is this a boundary 6 or is this out court? Please type into the chat box now, 19.26 or 19.2 out. The crowd is confused in the background. We will deal with that answer at the end of the presentation. Now, what happens if a boundary results from an overthrow or from the willful act of a fielder? We will have two videos, one showing an overthrow and the second one showing a willful act that result in a boundary. So let's learn how we handle those scenarios, and we will watch videos as well to show you all exactly what is an overthrow and exactly what is a willful act by a fielder. Law tells us that the runs scored shall be any runs for penalties awarded to either side. They will always stand. The allowance for the boundary, usually a boundary 4 from an overthrow or a willful act. But it can also, with a willful act, be a boundary 6. Also, the runs completed by the batters together with the run in progress if they had already crossed at the instant of the overthrow or the willful act. So let's first watch a video about the most famous or maybe infamous overthrow in the history of world cricket. It was in the 2019 World Cup final between England and New Zealand, an overthrow that led to England being in a strong position in the final over, chasing New Zealand's score.
Hello and welcome to the Cricket Digest channel. World Cup final match saw one of the most thrilling finish ever witnessed in an ODI match. However, an overthrow in the 50th over of England innings has sparked the debate. A throw from Martin Guptill deflected after hitting Ben Stokes, who was diving to save his wicket, and the ball crossed the boundary line. Many people were confused about how an overthrow is valid after the ball touches the batsman. Point to be considered here is, everyone in the field, including the batsman and the umpires, are considered as part of the play, and the fielding side has to take this into consideration. Hence, the ball getting deflected from either a batsman or an umpire will not be called a dead ball. However, if a batsman makes deliberate contact with the ball, or if he deliberately comes in the way of a throw, then the ball will be immediately called dead and the batsman will be given out, obstructing the field. But in the case of Ben Stokes, he had come in the way of throw, but he did not do it deliberately. He was running hard to save his wicket and he did not make deliberate contact with the ball either. It looks unfair to the fielding side in this case, but one should also take into consideration that catching after the ball hits either an umpire or a batsman is valid. Hence, allowing overthrow was well within the laws of the game. But there was a mistake committed by the umpires in this incident. They awarded 6 runs, whereas only 5 runs should have been awarded. According to Cricket Law 19.8, if the boundary results from an overthrow or from the willful act of a fielder, then the runs scored shall be allowance for the boundary, which is 4 runs in this case, and the runs completed by the batsman plus the run in progress if the batsman had already crossed at the instant of the throw. Ben Stokes and Adil Rashid had completed the first run, but they had not crossed for the second run at the instant of the throw. Hence, only 1 run should have been awarded for running, and in total 5 runs should have been awarded. Law further states that if the batsman had not crossed at the instant of the throw, then they should be sent to the end they have left. Meaning, in this case, Adil Rashid should have been sent to the striker's end and Ben Stokes should have been sent to the non-striking end for next delivery. If this law was applied properly, then the New Zealand team would have had a good chance to win the World Cup. Do you feel any different? Do let us know in the comment section.
So that was an example of an overthrow leading to a boundary. Now let's have a look at an example of a willful act by a fielder resulting in a boundary.
Started at 15:39. Calls for a single, but the Indians want the ball to go to the boundary. And it will not reach there, will it? Yes, it does. Just has it. Oh, he pushes it over. And signals boundary, 284 for 9, and it'll bring... interesting here. Will that be 5, Robin?
I think so. I think if you're seen to deliberately kick the ball over. And I think that's what Steve Davis is checking now.
South Africa won't mind this. This is time being wasted. These are crucial moments. 5 signal because he's kicked over. The ends will change. Tony starts altering the field.
Okay, so you can see at the bottom of the screen there, it's written 5 penalty runs. That's not correct. It is 5 normal runs, if we can call them that. How do we get to 5 normal runs? So I'll plot the scenario for you. You can see the score 289 for 9. Hashim Amla, South Africa's number 3 batter, was batting with Morne Morkel, the number 11 batter. It was the last ball of an over, and the South Africans wanted only 1 run so that Hashim Amla would face the first ball of the next over, and India wanted 4 runs so that Hashim Amla would stay at his end and Morne Morkel will stay at his end, and the next over would start with India bowling at Morne Morkel, the number 11 batter. So what Virender Sehwag did is he saw that the ball was not going to make it over the boundary, and he decided that he did want the ball to go for 4, and it actually stops a centimeter or 2 before the boundary rope, and he decides he's going to kick it onto the boundary cushion and immediately signal boundary forward to the umpire. The umpire probably communicated to by the 3rd umpire. There we can see them communicating. The TV umpire noticed that the ball was kicked over the boundary by Virender Sehwag, which is an deliberate act, or as the law mentions, a willful act. So that willful act led to a boundary, and if a willful act results in a boundary, what runs are scored? The allowance for the boundary, which is boundary 4, that is scored. Also, what is scored is any runs that have been completed, as well as the run in progress if they're crossed at the instant of the willful act. So because South Africa only wanted 1 run, by the time that Virender Sehwag kicked the ball, they had completed that 1 run. So 1 run completed plus the boundary allowance of 4 gives us 5 runs added to South Africa's score and 5 runs added to Hashim Amla's score. It's not penalty runs. And so the correct signal there from umpire Steve Davis would have been boundary 4 and showing the scorers with the back of his hand 5. And you could see that he was telling Hashim Amla and Morne Morkel who should go to which end, and Hashim Amla faced the first ball of the next over because it was 5 runs and not 4. So we need to know these laws to be able to notice when there is a deliberate or a willful act by a fielder that results in a boundary, who's going to face the next ball, and how many runs are scored. Last law that we will be going through today is Law 20, dead ball. There are 8 examples of when the ball automatically becomes dead. And in fact, sorry, there are 14 examples. Let's go through them first. And then there are 8 examples of when the ball we need to call and signal dead ball as umpires. So the ball automatically becomes dead when it is finally settled in the hands of the wicketkeeper or of the bowler. The ball automatically becomes dead when a boundary is scored. The ball automatically becomes dead when a batter is dismissed. The ball automatically becomes dead. Whether played or not, it becomes trapped between the bat and person of a batter or between items of his or her clothing or equipment. The ball automatically becomes dead. Whether played or not, it lodges in the clothing or equipment of a batter or the clothing of an umpire. When a player returns to the field without permission and comes into contact with the ball automatically becomes dead, and there's further punishment for the fielding side in that instant, which we will learn about in Law 24.4. If there is an act of illegal fielding, then the ball automatically becomes dead, and we will learn about the punishments for illegal fielding in Law 28.2. In both those scenarios, the ball shall not count as a legal delivery in the over and needs to be rebowled. If the ball goes behind the wicket keeper and hits the helmet that has been placed there, belonging to the fielding side, the ball automatically becomes dead and 5 penalty runs are awarded to the batting side. Good umpiring practice there, because not everybody will see the ball hitting the helmet. It's a good idea for either umpire, when they see the ball hitting the helmet placed behind the wicket keeper on the ground that belongs to the fielding side, that umpire shall call and signal dead ball. Even though the ball is automatically dead, good umpiring practice is to call and signal dead ball. The ball also automatically becomes dead when the match is concluded. Nothing further can happen after the match is concluded. Very importantly, neither the call of over nor the call of time is to be made until the ball is dead. Okay, don't be in a rush to call over. Wait for the ball to be dead. Nothing is happening. You can see the fielding side have considered the ball to be dead, and the batters are not trying to take another run. Only then, if it's the last ball of the over, should you call over. And if it's the end of the session, then you can call time. Very importantly, the ball shall be considered to be dead when it is clear to the bowler's end umpire that the fielding side and both batters at the wicket have ceased to regard the ball as in play. And whether the ball is finally settled or not in the bowler or the wicketkeeper's hand is for the umpires to decide. So we're going to watch a very infamous incident that happened at the Ashes Test match at Lords in 2023. Was this a dead ball? Had the ball finally settled in the wicketkeeper's hands? Or was Johnny Bairstow out, run out? Or was Johnny Bairstow out, stumped? Let's have a look at the video, and you need to type into the chat box 20.1 dead ball, or 20.1 run out, or 20.1 stumped? We'll go through the answers after I've gone through the presentation.
Cricket as Australians left the field at lunch on the final day. The normally genteel long room reached boiling point as the members vented their disgust.
Some of the stuff that was coming out of the members' mouth was really disappointing, and I wasn't just going to stand by and cop it. I just talked to a few of them throwing out some pretty big allegations, and I just called them up on it.
This was the incident that sparked the fire.
Oh, now this is going to be interesting.
Before the ball had been deemed dead by the umpire, quick-thinking keeper Alex Carey caught his English counterpart, Johnny Bairstow, napping. The stumping was certainly within the rules of the game, but whether it was within its spirit is now at the centre of furious debate.
If the shoe was on the other foot, I would probably just have to have a little think around the sort of whole spirit of the game and things like that. So, look, it's happened, it's out.
Is it going to affect relations between the teams?
Well, I can't imagine we'll be having a beer anytime soon, if that's what you're asking.
The Australian captain defended Carey's actions and the decision not to withdraw the appeal.
I thought it was totally fair play. That's how the rule is. I know some people might disagree.
You know, you see Johnny do it all the time. He did it day one to Davey Warner. He did it in 2019 to Steve. It's a really common thing for keepers to do.
So please type into the chat box 20.1 dead ball, or 20.1 run out, or 20.1 stumped. Apologies for that. Now we've gone through the incidents where where the ball automatically becomes dead. Now we're going to go through when the ball, we need to call and signal dead ball. Either umpire shall call and signal dead ball when intervening in the case of unfair play. Either umpire shall call and signal dead ball if there is a possibly serious injury to a player or an umpire. Either umpire shall call and signal dead ball if they leave their normal position for consulting with the other umpire. Either umpire shall call and signal dead ball when one or both bails fall from the striker's wicket before the striker has had the opportunity of playing the ball. If the striker is not ready for the delivery of the ball, and if the ball is delivered makes no attempt to play it, then either umpire shall call and signal dead ball, provided the umpire is satisfied that the striker had adequate reason for not being ready. This ball shall not count as a legal delivery in the over and needs to be re-bowled. So, quiz question 20.2. Considering what we've seen on the previous slide, is this a dead ball or is this a run out? Please have a watch and then type into your chat box your answer, please. Okay, let's see what happens here. Bowler bowls a short pitch delivery. It hits the glove of the striker. The striker wrings his hand, waves at the physio to come for treatment, and all this while he's outside of his popping crease, and the cover fielder, realizing that the striker is outside of his crease, throws the stumps down, and we can see clearly there that the striker is well outside of his crease when the ball puts the wickets down. Quiz question 20.2, is this a dead ball or is this out run out? Please type your answer into the chat box now. Last quiz question for the afternoon. Mark Watts, famous Scottish bowler, he likes to bowl a surprise delivery, which you can see on the right-hand side of your screen. He bowls from about 2.5 meters behind the popping crease. Normally, bowlers bowl with their front foot on the popping crease. Mark Watts, as a surprise delivery, likes to bowl from behind the popping crease, just in front of the umpire. So, question here is the striker ready or is the striker not ready? Is this a fair delivery? Is the striker out bowled, or are we going to call and signal dead ball?
Extended distance as far as Khalid Kale was concerned. That was a bridge too far.
I'm not sure about that, Merger's dead ball given.
Hey, no, he can't have two in a row.
Well, Mark Watts not happy, and he says, how's that? It's been signalled dead ball by the umpire. Richie Berrington's come across and Matt Cross as well. That's the second time in the over.
Well, the batter's looking up, he's ready, and to me, that is a legitimate ball. The ball is live. As soon as the batter has placed his bat down and faces up, looks up to the bowler, he's ready to go.
So please type your answer in the chat box. 20.3 out bowled or 20.3 dead ball. More scenarios where we need to call and signal dead ball. If the striker is distracted by any noise or movement, or in any other way while preparing to receive or receiving a delivery, either umpire shall call and signal dead ball. This shall apply whether the source of the distraction is within the match or outside of it. The ball shall not count as a legal delivery in the over and needs to be re-bowled. If there is a deliberate attempt to distract the striker, or there's deliberate distraction, deception, or obstruction of either batter, either umpire shall call and signal dead ball. This ball shall not count as a legal delivery in the over and needs to be re-bowled. If the bowler drops the ball accidentally before delivery, either umpire shall call and signal dead ball. If the bowler throws the ball towards the striker's end before entering his or her delivery stride, either umpire shall call and signal dead ball. Few more instances where we need to call and signal dead ball. If the ball does not leave the bowler's hand for any reason other than an attempt to run out the non-striker, usually the bowler's end umpire in this scenario will call and signal dead ball. If either umpire is satisfied that the ball in play cannot be recovered, they shall call and signal dead ball. Remember, I spoke earlier about a dog on the field of play stopping the ball from going towards the boundary. If the bowler's end umpire doesn't think the ball is going or was going to go to the boundary if it wasn't for the ball hitting the dog, if the bowler's end umpire considers that either team has been disadvantaged by the ball hitting an animal or an unallowed person, unauthorized person in the field of play, then they will call and signal dead ball. If the striker attempts to play the ball and no part of his or her person, whether grounded or raised, remains within the pitch, then the bowlers and umpires in the best position to see this, they will call and signal dead ball. If we are required to call and signal dead ball under any of the laws not included in Law 20, then we will call and signal dead ball. That is all that I'm presenting to you this afternoon. I'm now going to go back in the presentation and go look for our quiz questions, and we will answer them together. The first quiz question for today is involving Tim David and a Big Bash League match. I asked you how many runs are scored by the batting side, if any, question 18.1, and how many runs are awarded to the fielding side, if any, question 18.2. Let's have a look at the video again, and then I'll talk you through it.
Oh, it's pretty well positioned throw, wasn't it? Sure, Maxie. I think they're talking about
Apologies, I seem to have disconnected the sharing. Let me reshare. Okay, so let's just carry on playing this video and I'll talk you through how to handle it.
non-striker, perhaps leading.
So Tim David, a big hitter in Australia. This was the 20th over of a T20 innings. He's batting with a lower order batter, and he is trying to make sure that he faces the last ball of the over. So what did he do? He deliberately ran short so that he could not be run out at the other end where Maxwell threw the ball. So umpires came together, discussed it, and quite rightly called and signaled dead ball, and they signaled short run, and they disallowed all runs to the batting side, and they awarded 5 penalty runs to the fielding side for deliberate short running by Tim David. So quiz question 18.1, how many runs are scored by the batting side? 0. Quiz question 18.2, how many runs are awarded to the fielding side? 5 penalty runs awarded to the fielding side. Okay. Let's go to the next quiz question. It is 19.1, and it is to do with the definition of boundaries. So we are going to show the definition of a boundary 6 as well as a definition of a boundary 4. And then I'm going to ask the question again, or describe the scenario again to all of you. So here it is. The question is, or the scenario is, a fast bowler bowls a short pitch delivery that bounces high up. The striker attempts to play a hook shot, misses the ball hits his helmet and flies over the boundary. What are the signals that the bowlers and umpire should make in this scenario? So law tells us that a boundary 6 can only be off the bat. So did the ball hit the bat? No. So it cannot be a boundary 6. Can it be a boundary 4? Yes. Boundary 4 will be scored when a ball that is grounded beyond the boundary, whether struck by the bat or not, was first grounded within the boundary or has not been struck by the bat. So in this scenario, because the ball came off the helmet of the striker, not the bat or the glove holding the bat, it is not a boundary 6, it is a boundary 4. But because it did not come off the bat, we need to signal leg buys. It came off the head of the striker. So we signal leg by first, and then we signal boundary 4. And this is not part of law, but part of playing conditions. 1 short pitch delivery for the over has been bowled. And with today's concussion protocols, we need to call on the physio to come and do a concussion test for that batter. Okay, so 19.1, 3 signals, maybe even 4. Leg by, boundary 4, 1 short pitch delivery for the over, and call on the physio. Those are the signals that the bowlers and umpire should make. Let's move on to the Johnny Bairstow scenario. I'm going to fast forward this to when the delivery happens. And I'm going to put the volume down. This was it. You can see here that Alex Carey takes the ball immediately, throws it to Johnny Bairstow, who has left his crease. He thinks it's over up. The bowlers and umpire has not called over. Has the fielding side considered the ball as dead? Definitely not. Have the umpires considered the ball as being dead? No, they have not. So, unfortunately, Johnny Bairstow is out. How is he out? Because he was not attempting a run and because the wicket was fairly put down by the wicketkeeper, Johnny Bairstow is out stumped. Okay, answer to quiz question 20.1, out stumped. Next, we move to the scenario of the striker wringing his hand. Bowler bowls a ball, hits the right glove. Batter signals to the physio, asking for attention. He's outside of his crease when the cover fielder comes in, throws the ball, and the wickets are put down with the striker outside of his crease. So now we need to consider, is this a serious injury? Because either umpire shall call and signal dead ball if there is a possibly serious injury to any player or umpire. So what do we consider a serious injury? If we see blood coming from an impact that is on the field of play, we would consider that a serious injury. If a player screams in pain because of a blow, we would consider that a serious injury. If the ball has hit the player on their head, especially underneath the helmet or without a helmet, then we would consider it a serious injury. Do we consider this a serious injury? I do not consider this a serious injury, because if this batter was seriously injured, they would not have called for the physio. They would have just screamed in pain. And also, we see the batter in this picture actually putting weight on the hand that has been hit by the ball. If he was seriously injured, he would not be putting weight on that hand. So, not a serious injury. We do not call dead ball. Play continues. Ball is still live. Out, run out was the correct decision on the day. Last quiz question that we need to answer. Mark Watts. He tries to catch Khalid Kale unprepared and not ready. And he does it not once, but twice in the same over. And the umpire here has called and signaled dead ball. Is this out bowled or is this a dead ball? The umpire has seen by the batter's reaction walking away that they were not ready for that delivery. It is up to the batter to decide whether he or she is ready for the delivery or not. And if they feel that they are not ready for the delivery, then they have the right to back away, as Khalid Kale did in this scenario. And they, as long as they don't play at the shot, the umpire shall call and signal dead ball. So because Mark Watts does that as a surprise element, then the batter is well within his rights to not be ready. It did surprise him, and that is not allowed. Or if he feels he's not ready, then he is allowed to move away as he did. So correct decision by the bowlers and umpire, dead ball. Of course, the umpire can still say to the striker, you need to be ready when the bowler is at the top of his or her mark. So please be ready. Yes, we can issue warnings for time wasting, but we will still call and signal dead ball because the striker was not ready. It is now 3:30 on the dot. I've taken us all the way through to the end of our lecture. I'm just going through to the chat box to see if there are any questions in the chat box. I don't see any questions. I do want to thank you for your attendance and your interaction for a very long lecture today. I have tried to allow your microphones, here we go, and your cameras to be active. I see I've just managed to do that now. So those of you still with us who would like to wish everybody farewell, please put on your cameras, please put on your microphones, tell us where you're from, greet, say hi, say thank you, say where you are dialing in from, what hub you are representing, and we will see you all next week, Tuesday. For those candidates who you know are not in this lecture today, please remind them that on Thursday we will be repeating the same lecture. So they must join us on Thursday for the Thursday class, lecture number 2. Zenobia Jacobs, good afternoon. How are you? Hello, and thank you for putting your camera on. Chad Tim, good day to you. Thank you for joining us. Hope you're all well from around the country. Prince Ndlovu, good day. Thank you. We'll see you all next week, Tuesday. Siziwe, Betini Sizwe, Mawande, thank you all for putting on your cameras. Shakira Felanda, we see you. Ompeme Tse, Pasetsana, where are you guys all from? Let's hear you shouting your hub, and we will say thank you again. Have a good day further. See you next week. Goodbye.
Central Hub. South Hub. South Hub.
South Hub is in the house.
Thank you, Kwatuma Hub.
Fatuma Hub is in the house.
Barseba Hub.
Barseba Hub always in the house.
Senebia Hub.
Dobsonville Hub.
Dobsonville also in the house. Tuduza in the house. Hello, Tuduza.